dealing on the talks now, or this is something that is put in place for a layout for what you have planned in line of what the kingdom have for the African diaspora? I yield the floor.
Well, it's in line with the vision of Africa's radiant future for the man who is now the actual head of the African Union Commission, who said in an introduction to the leaders of Africa, I present to you my ambitious vision for Africa as candidate for the chairmanship of the Commission of the African Union. This vision aims to make Africa an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful continent, guided by the values of diversity, gender equality, transparency, and integrity, inspired by Agenda 2063 and its second 10-year plan. I am committed to pursuing institutional reforms to achieve our common goals. My leadership will focus on governance, democracy, peace, security, economic and social development, infrastructure, the environment, youth, gender equality, the African diaspora, and Africa's position on the international stage. So let's take that African diaspora section. It is under the MOU, that we said we'd create a book, The Black Folks Plan for the Numi Kingdom. That book will feature the African Diaspora Directorate as the joint operating between the Numi Kingdom and Friends of the African Union, between your company as an individual and sovereign, and my company as an American citizen, and in the creation for Africa under the African Diaspora Directorate with Friends of the African Union of funding of $400 billion a year for the next 75 years this way. We would create 1,000 special purpose vehicles on the New York Stock Exchange, each having their own CUSIP. Each of these special purpose vehicles would have assets that would be valued at no less than $1 billion face value, no less than 85% LTV, as set by insurance company with disclosure. Zurich Insurance can do up to $2 billion in a steady basis through its agency Farmers. The agent for this is Wanda Lloyd Daniels, my wife, and her agency, along with partnership from the Kingdom, who's a qualified insurance agent. Under the setup of the African Diaspora Directorate, where you become the leader, you replace Dr. Kofi Ajapong, who is the current leader in 2022, transferred his leadership into the Friends of the African Union Institute with Queen Mother of the Ashanti, Dr. Bernice Atchison. And that in that leadership of the African Diaspora Directorate has already placed an unsolicited proposal to the United States State
Is there no
Department.
sound, or is it just me? I'm trying to.
Oh, you didn't get any of that. Did everybody get the sound?
Yeah, we got the sound.
Okay. So there's actually to your lawyers tomorrow the modification of the agreement from the MOU that references the Kingdom of Numi, the Black Folks Plan of 2025 for the Numi Kingdom as a draft that would be referenced in the agreement for us to go specific. All this that I'm talking about in terms of the layout of the African Diaspora Directorate and its change, and that the call of the Monarchy of Africa and the set of that, that's all in this document that has been prepared. The draft has been prepared and ready for release tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that information. What I would like to also share with you, I had a meeting with Ambassador Fologuni, U.S. and also Africa, want to have a meeting with their kings, because knowing that the presence of, and I want to be clear, a lot of people doesn't know that it's actually a king that controls the African diaspora. A lot of people don't know that, and they don't care to know because they are not really paying attention or studying what's going on in the global community, and also what's going on behind closed doors on discussions. As you may know, in the meeting that was held on Friday with Ethiopia, and also the leader that was some of the leaders that were Ethiopia and the kings, they are putting in a position where the kingdom will be that catalyst for the African diaspora itself, because of the structure, monarchy structure, dealing with a hybrid democracy with a sovereign capacity. And we want to make sure that the people understand that democracy does not control the thoughts of the people or the presence of the people, but at the same time respect the order of things, dealing with the rights for indigenous people, the rights for free enterprise and structure, not saying that the monarchy does not have any say so, but protections of these people rights. And I wanted to make sure that through your guidance, that what you have set up through Friends of the African Union and also the Black Folks Plan, that message be delivered. It's not saying that we won't respect people's position, but we have to be in a governmental structure, because that's the only way that anyone else that will respect that. A lot of people saying that, coming in with an IGO and an NGO will be one thing, but the respect of order and the respect of international trade and commerce, we don't have the community. And the community, we lost our way in the communities. And with the community, and as you may know, we had that discussion, the pillars of community, you have 5 pillars in the community. Now I'm seeing that it's actually 9 pillars in the community. So we have to make sure that our communities stand. And I yield the floor. I don't want to take your knowledge, Chairman. I yield the floor.
And to that, I give to people so that they understand what we're talking about. We're going into the permanent forum on people of African descent, and the work that we'll be doing that, which will be launched tomorrow by the African Scientific Institute Reunited around April 21st and the 2nd of May. This session theme is implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People within the United Nations member states and the United Nations system, including identifying good practices and addressing challenges, as you just said, for people of African descent who are members of the Indigenous Forum, is to set out a set of operating principles worldwide that are built on a superset of Agenda 2063, Agenda 2030, the blueprint for the future, and all of the above, with the understanding that we as a people are caregiving, that have lost our way in the 21st century. And so that's why FAU partnered with CARE CFA and its work there, and that we're demonstrating that work in Cincinnati, Ohio, with our school kids as a model, and as other cities and other universities and towns. And as you said, that within the idea of democracy in a nation state and a monarchy in a sovereign nation, how does that work? in the 21st century, and that the Numi Kingdom is approaching that based on your family's traditional lineage as a African monarchy, okay, that in terms of royalty within an African tribe and leadership, that your great grandfather, was it great
Yeah,
grandfather?
eight. You can say eight greats.
Okay. And so within that, the idea is to take up what has been put in place, okay, by the in the United States in the creation of a sovereign wealth fund, and folks, we you know, I originally said earlier this week, Musk had identified 5.7 trillion. We really don't know how much he's identified so far, okay, because for the first time, and I didn't know this, first time in 50 years, we're actually going to have an audit of Fort Knox, where there is, according to my knowledge, there was about 8,400 tons of gold. Uh, Now they were saying 5,000, and others were saying there's nothing there. Okay, and so stand by for the Rock Your World Dodge inspection of Fort Knox. They have finished going. There's an executive order for the implementation. And of course, we see the problem that those who are objecting obviously don't know the organizational structure that from day one has been put in place, that Doge is a rework of the work of President Obama. It's legal, folks. Okay. And the thing that I asked my congressman is to ask, has all these people filled out SF 86s? Okay. Uh, so, let's start with the rhetoric and get on with the governance. Because on March 15th, the United States current continuing resolution runs out. And if we close up shop, like some people want us to do in the government, we're going to take a credit hitting rate. And the last time we took a credit hitting rate because of that, cost us a couple $1 billion ongoing. All right. I don't know how much cumulative, but there's no reason for us not to pass an omnibus continuing resolution, so that based on 2024 budget resolution, so that we can get to September, where passing 12 bills may be possible. Okay, so that's a prime requirement. Now, as I was mentioning to you earlier when I was saying the creation of the United States Compact for Democracy with a Just Economy, let me break that down to everybody. So it's United States. It's not the United States of America. It's the United States. Okay. And in this is a opportunity for the people of the United States to offer to the world a solution for the world to address the world's problems that we submitted to the 35th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent. And so that's there. It's been out. And now we're going to detail it tomorrow from Baltimore around issues that we're going to give an example of countries, starting with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, how that is applied within the context of the United States not having a global program to offer in competition to China's Belt and Road or the European Union's Global Gateway Program, which through 2027 is meant to invest $300 billion into principally Africa. All right. Is being implemented through Team Europe initiatives and the EU, its member states, and financial institutions. Well, we have an American-based program which will put $30 trillion over the next 75 years, or at least 10% of the $300 trillion in the assets in the African Union member states over the next 75 years. And so it'll be done in 3 25-year periods and 15 reviewed areas, of 5 years each. I open it up for additional questions.
Yes, Chairman, the document that you had sent to me earlier, I will be, let me,
Customers get their second month free. Call 1-800-710-4133 or visit consumercellular.com to switch
All right,
today.
somebody needs to, Rod, you need, all right, go ahead.
okay, the document that was sent to me, showing the structure for the funding, the sovereign funding, is that in line on what you just mentioned? Or that has something to do with the funding that the kingdom had created for the plan and structure that that's going to bring in through the trust fund that the kingdom have for the diaspora?
No, that's America's sovereign fund. America is going to create a sovereign fund.
Okay.
But when I said in the P5, the public sector, that sovereign fund is yet to be determined, the structure, its relationships, and et cetera. We have a plan of action around new cash. That's NU space CA $H that we're putting forth out of Maryland tomorrow. Okay, in which, as a plan of action, that includes the African Diaspora Directorate and organizations that help form that organization and its reformation. But the original organizations, the fiscal fiduciary, was the Brotherhood and Sisterhood International Blacks and Whites Uniting Communities and Friends of the African Union, who proposed it to the United Nations Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent in May of 2019. And so the what we failed to do was to bring the Black community together around the 400-year African American History Commission Act signed into law by President Trump on January 8th, 2018, because of the failure to overcome Ambassador Arikana's incorrect discussions with Americans, blaming all of Africa's problems on the Europeans, especially France, when the Treaty of Berlin, signed in 1885, included the United States of America as a signature, but did not become American law till 1930. And we were actually the first organization in 2012 ever created around that fact. And so now in 2025, we talk about how we implement, with a government that we could not get the Biden administration to create a digital platform as a sovereign platform. But the Trump administration is now in the midst of exploring just that fact. Okay, and so on January 29th, we made the proposition public And then, of course, the Trump administration gave a proclamation in January, at the end of January, celebrating Black History Month. And then on February 12th at 1:30, President Trump hosted a reception at the White House around those who were invited to celebrate Black History Month. But, you know, people were saying, well, that goes against them killing DEI or DEIA. And I tell them, nowhere did he issue a proclamation ending Black History Month. Read the actual documentation. And what you will find is that people are running scared. And so that they could say, I have canceled everything. Like my old agency, they canceled everything. All right. And that way they can say, you can't hold me accountable for not canceling every, of this, and this, and not canceling that. Because I got to say, the communications has been terrible. Okay. Now you got to understand that what Dodge did, and let me say that their hacks have been terrible in the OPM. What they did was that they brought in their own email server and hacked and put it into the OPM for communications, and been setting out initially for the first week tests, and what they didn't do is they didn't talk about how they needed to land Doge teams at each of 90 different federal government agencies, departments, and so they didn't do it, and so there's all sorts of confusion. The intent is clear and was made clear last year. Some people, I have sent copies of the 900-page Project 2025 so that they would finally read it. We did so last year when we submitted on July 10th to the National Security Council an 111-page document of the direction of Friends of the African Union, Herschel Daniels Jr., along with the utilization of the PNC Bank Agreement and those agreements that we had signed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nigeria, Haiti, and others. And so it's on the record. Now all those people are not there now. So we get to rebuild it in 2025, based without the problems of 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, and 2020. When in 2020, on January 27th, at the U.S. State Department, in the review of the Universal Periodic Review of the Human Rights of the United States under the Trump administration, that we submitted the updated Black Folks Plan with a request for the $6 trillion, because we had figured the economic damage from our people now from 1868, July 28th, when our ancestors became American citizens under the 14th Amendment, and through 1965, that we figured the economic damage was then nearly $800 billion, on top of the $5.2 trillion in the reparational justice for those people of African descent who were among the some 32 million people of African descent who are citizens in this country, and those of African descent from America's slave system. And the total market now in 2025 of 55 million in the global African diaspora community in the United States. And that includes people like Carly B, Kim Kardashian, and others. Okay. With that being said, in this administration, it's a transactional relationship because America in the 21st century going in is being challenged like never before. And the market that we should have a natural control over is Africa. And so our plan of action in that is to lift and use what the Chinese are using and saying, hey, we moved 800 million people out of abject poverty. We did it and we could do it for you. They just don't tell the subtitle is we did it because the capitalists in the United States under Nixon and Kissinger opened us up after we had killed over 60 million of our citizens in the Great Leap Forward. Okay. And that finally the Chinese Communist Party, that numbers 100 million today, at that time was in dire straits as a second world agricultural power, okay, that could not even feed itself. But that we opened it up and confirmed as part of the greatest mistake that President Carter did, that was confirmed by President Reagan. And we hauled out America's manufacturing in a new global infrastructure centered around the low-cost manufacturing in Asia, which had already been recovering from World War II by our investment in three areas: Taiwan, Korea, and Japan. And that we had our capitalist leaders had made a decision that China was a billion people market, and that in the future that they could see themselves dominating that market. Well, little did they take into consideration that China, like the United States, was a colonial country. We were a colonial country of England from 1619 to 1776. They were a colonial country of the Western Sphere, and the Chinese Communist Party was united with the Chinese people in saying never again. And so they were able to use that in the manufacturing infrastructure to move over 800 million people from abject poverty into middle class life. And now they're using that as their calling card in the Belt and Road Initiative. And so our calling card to Africa, led by Americans, based on a statement earlier, is to the 600 million Africans who have no electricity right now, and the 300 million who have access to electricity on an intermediate basis, that by 2035, we can solve that problem. And in solving that problem, the technological infrastructure that is put in place would defeat what the president of Mexico has said relative to President Trump's initiative around tariffs, in that they can participate and create a 7 billion strong alternative market that would not be allied with American manufacturing infrastructure, thereby destroying the $2 trillion economy of Black folk in the United States, of which we are 73% a consumer economy in the Black community versus America as an overall 65% consumer economy that currently drives the world. We're in the midst of change, and we think we have a plan to put on the table. I'll stop there and take any additional questions. Okay.
So, Chairman, I'm
Yes.
assuming that
Rod
if
Bradshaw.
it, yeah, that's Rod Bradshaw. If this gold is indeed short or not there, I'm assuming the economy, the American economy, will take a vicious hit. Is that assumption yay or nay?
It will. I think it will take an initial drop. Okay. In the economy, if you're into the market, I would be, depending on how you're thinking, I would be shorting, okay, in the market right now. Okay. I haven't looked to see because the announcement of the came out after hours on Friday, and I haven't been up on Bloomberg all weekend. And I just have the Bloomberg TV now. I don't have a terminal anymore, but I can think that there's shorting going on. Okay, uh, and it hasn't been done in 50 years, folks. 50 years there has not been an audit, and those people who think, well, the Fed hasn't been audited. Sorry, you are incorrect. Okay, Dodd-Frank, we got tough audits of the Fed because we're part of the National Community Reinvestment Coalition since 1999. And we are part of the group that Elizabeth Warren was hired as a speaker, who in 2007, she came up with the Consumer Finance Board, okay, that was just taken out. Okay, so yes, we've been there, we've done that. And the American economy could take a short-term hit, but what will be a long-term hit is if that on top of, okay, the not having a continuing resolution for government, because that will give us a long-term downgrade on our credit rating, which means it'll cost more to borrow money. And see, it could lead to a cycle. Worst thing that could happen is people lose confidence in the American ability to pay their debt. Okay. And again, we're not addressing issues that do that. I mean, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett said it makes no sense that they pay taxes for Social Security that is equal to $136,000, and it's capped. Okay, hey, you earn $136,000, you pay Social Security taxes, and they pay the same amount. Okay, so if they paid on their whole income, same if their class of people paid on the same income, over 75% of the deficit in Social Security will go away. And America, we bought into this false narrative that rich people don't pay taxes. Well, they avoid paying as much taxes as they can, but over 70% of American tax comes from wealthy people. But they avoid it as much as they can, but they can't avoid it all the way. But farmers in America are in a tough go. Okay, and I say that working with Rod in the Black Folks Plan for Black Farmers, and that we understand that farmers in America are facing just terrible, terrible opportunities. And so Rod Bradshaw.
I think the correct word is extinction.
Well, hey, we're about to find out if Secretary Brooke Adams, okay, will listen to us. All right. Now, just so you know, folks, the whole reason I defer to Rod is that he's a fourth generation Black farmer who's a trailblazer in agriculture and a passionate advocate for America's Black farmers. And he's based in Jetmore, Kansas, and his farming journey began early in life, working alongside his parents on their family farm. And so he has that background that's necessary from 1976 when he launched his own family farming operation. So he's been there nearly 50 years and understanding from the early success of 4-H as a young man to when in 1995 he had taken over 2,700 acres of his father's land upon his retirement. Okay. But he didn't also just do farming, he also did cows, okay, and had 6 bulls, Black Angus, all right. So he's been there along, okay, and between him and Queen Mother of the Ashanti, Dr. Bernice Atchison, who, like Rod, is a farmer, but she also owns a forest. And between these two esteemed elders, okay, that we're working to put in solutions, and we're going to see Brooke Rollins. She said all the right words in her confirmation, but we're going to see how it is when we put in the solution. If you want to see where we're at, just go to blackfolksplan.org. Take a look at the video when we met with the USDA farm Ducheneau, who's in charge of the Farm Bureau. All right. Additional questions before we go?
Yeah, one question, Herschel, is, and I know you've been busy, but I encourage you to take a look at Secretary Rollins' initial message at the USDA headquarters as she doges out and slashes and cuts the Department of Agriculture. And as you probably know, the Equity Commission is gone.
Yes. Yep.
And the statutory committee, the Minority Farmers and Ranchers, the chair of that now is out of Texas. So notwithstanding all of the great efforts, Sea to Shining Sea, Texas has about 1/4 of the Black agricultural producers in this country. And so we're going to have an interesting road. We're right at 1% nationwide, but here in California, we're hedging our bet, partnering with the Farm Bureau and looking at the next generation of ag producers. Again, working with the first woman president of the Farm Bureau in the history of the 100-year Farm Bureau. So next week will be very interesting here in California, but look forward to sooner than later preparing for 2026 in LA and the work that we have to do.
So I put in the chat the link, just so you understand, folks. In Texas, she did farm policy, okay, for 15 years. And so this is the woman who President Trump, in his first term, she was his domestic policy council director for all of the United States. And when he decided to create a shadow government, he chose her organization. He chose her to build an organization. That organization, not the Heritage Foundation, that organization was in charge of the transition from Biden to Trump. And the chairwoman of that organization is in charge of the education secretary, and she's in charge of the agriculture. So from that organization, the future and our children and the food for today came out of that organization. And of course, they all are friends with Stu Weiss. So you will see in these, okay, all right, that they have, it's interesting what she said. You know, I looked at it now, but those qualities on stark display in the past few weeks in the firefighters of our U.S. Forest Service who answered the call to defend American homes. Yep, she should be having an interesting talk with Dodge because they laid off 3,500 of them. So, you know, she has the ability to call on the president. That's not a question in my mind's eye. The question is, will she use it for America? Because, as Rod said, the heartland that voted for President Trump is going under in increasingly daily failures. Okay. When she said, we will ensure that American agriculture feeds all America and the world's besides. Well, USDA right now, the food that USDA has already bought is rotting on the piers all around the world. And plus, there's over 400 million in U.S. Farm Bureau purchases that were canceled from U.S. farmers who were planning to sell that. We will ensure that American farmers, ranchers, and producers compete on a world stage that is fair on terms that put America first. Well, we're going to, our concentration is on people of African descent and allied nations. Okay, so we will see how that works out. But remember this, last time in the tariffs, that I think what did he put in? He put $25 to $45 billion into American farmers based on what they lost in trade. Yeah, okay. We will keep the trust handed to us in our programs to fight disease, to feed the needy, to manage our land and forests, and most of all, to work for all American agriculture. Well, we're Black American agriculture. We'll take you up on that. We work to ensure that Make America Great Again and Make America Healthy Again exists not in opposition to one another, but as complements in the common mission for our country. All right, well, we've got a laboratory for that. It's called the 36,000 Students of the Cincinnati Public Schools. Look forward to it, Secretary. Additional question. Oh, by the way, folks, that's Michael Harris, who's also a veteran partner, but he's the one who, other than, he turned me on to the policy aspects of what Rod and Bernice did in the farming expertise. He turned me on to the policy, and there I turned our organization to that. And so, okay, Rod, you were saying something.
Actually, Trump put 46 billion in on that farming deal, and Black farmers got less than 1% of that money.
Yeah, I can assume so, seeing that what we experienced in under the Biden administration, I could say so. One of the key things that you must be able to do is to deliver political action money and infrastructure and a unified, if not that, then a unified voting bloc. And Black farmers have not been able to do that. They can't even
that, and you have to have production. You can't, if money is earmarked for you being impacted by policy decisions and your production is impacted and you can't show where you had any production, you're not going to get any of that money.
Yeah. So we can, again, that's one of the challenges, those three areas that we are coming up in this administration. But the good thing is that we're have a global market in the African continent.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that Michael was just doing, in fact, at the World Ag Expo, just now. So we don't just talk the talk, we actually walk the walk here, okay? If you want to take a look at some of the stuff that we do, just go to blackfolksplan.org, blackfolksplan.org. Okay, it's time for me to go get something to eat and
some sleep. Get some rest, bro.
all right. Any additional questions before we go?
I hate to hold you, Herschel. Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Jones. But just before Christmas, in a very, very mean-spirited manner, one of the principal people involved in all of this was hoping that we could shut down the country right before Christmas. Now, when this comes up, is the Congress going to support him if they decide to shut down the government again? And what
hold it, Doc.
impact will it have?
Doc, that's up to Congress right now. The president does not, okay, this is a congressional issue right now. All right. And so what the president has said, it's up to Congress to make it happen, so that what he said is, I wanted one reconciliation bill. I want one big bill. Reconciliation means that it can be passed by the House and the Senate by the Republican majority in both without any Democratic input. Well, that's not going to happen in most worlds by March 15th. So now the House and the Senate must pass either a budget or a continuing resolution. So in that, I called up Yvette Clarke, her office, and I asked, is there a budget message from the Congressional Black Caucus? There is not. Is there a reconciliation guidance from the Congressional Black Caucus? There is not. So the movement in terms of what's going forward, there are those who have never voted in the Republican caucus, the Freedom Caucus, who have never and never will vote for a continuing resolution. And there are those who say we need to institute drastic cuts. But they're having to say, where is the Congressional Black Caucus Project 2025, the Progressive 2025? Where is the alternative? The only thing I can say to that is that we have a Black folks plan driven United States compact for democracy with a just economy that, if instituted with the presidency under executive action, is a game changer.
I got a question.
Not need Congress to
And
act.
building right on that, Hakeem Jeffries will be out here this week in California, and hopefully when he gets back, after, I'm sure, some private conversations with Nancy Pelosi and others out here west, when you have that conversation with our Jamaican sister of New York, they will have an answer before Black History Month ends. Because absent a plan, I mean, the people perish, right? So if we don't give them one, they ain't gonna have one.
Exactly. All right. All right.
Oh, thanks. Herschel,
Yeah.
Earlier you said something about an audit, and there's a possibility there might not be any gold in there. What kind of an impact will that have on the American dollar and its ability to, our
I
ability to
told you,
back
sure.
it?
I told you, sure. It don't have any effect on the American dollar because the dollar has been disconnected from gold as backing. But it will affect the American dollar negatively because it's all about faith and credit of the United States. Do you believe that what the United States is doing is going to be successful or not? Do you believe
Right.
that a global trade war that the United States is going to be successful? I mean, the last major global trade war in the circumstances like this led to World War II. Okay. And so, with that being said, okay, see, the Europeans, where that principally, the European in Asia, where that principally that war is and was, so you know, they are naturally, a cat on a hot tin roof right now. Okay, they finally got there. Think about that. They finally got there. Okay, and it's a blame of Joe Biden. No ifs, ands, or buts in terms of he did the right thing on when February 4th, 2022, that nobody believed that he was going to do in the first year. Okay. But the second year, and we're now entering into the third year. Okay. So understand what Ukraine has been to the U.S. military has been one, it's been a test of our uh, artificial intelligence, artillery, and our means of combat. Okay, all right. The rules of engagement in the 21st century has been tested in Ukraine. Two, we've destroyed the Russian military infrastructure. The problem with that is that Russia is devoted to rebuilding that infrastructure and was willing to spend the money to do so. And three, if we surrender without adequate preparation, the United States will come out weaker in the end. And so, for us who are people of African descent in the United States, that will have a negative effect on our brothers and sisters in Africa because they will become more under the dominance of Russia, China, and its allies in BRICS.
Wow.
That's my thought. What's yours?
Mine,
I know you don't have enough information right now
right.
okay, so that's fine. I'll make sure when we do this tomorrow that I give you the information so that you can ask the questions that I invited you to ask as one of the people who has the ability to do so. With that
Thank
being
you.
said,
Yeah, let's do this.
all right. The last point I wanted to cover, and then I covered as I brought you all together. Okay. Today, we celebrate on the heels of Kendrick Lamar's 2025 Super Bowl halftime show, which was a masterful cultural statement that affirmed America's Black identity and challenged dominant narratives. Okay. When he played and how he played his set list, that it was a journey through not only his discography, but conveyed themes about the struggle, the resilience, and excellence of Black folk, in particular out of Compton, and the things that he used and the people who participated in the stage design that not only mimicking South Central Los Angeles architecture and designs, but also the whole idea of the theme that was aimed at Generation AZ in the controller, and then in the midst of the controller, the prison yard, and then him wearing a modified Black Panther uniform, because most people don't know that when they broke the Panthers in Oakland, that the Panthers became the Bloods and Crips and started the journey that modified the 5 principles of hip hop, the 5th principle being knowledge. Well, his audience reach was 133 million, and our new blackfolksplan.org, I see I'm looking at the document. I must have been tired when I was writing that, because we site, okay, will launch on March 15th, 2025. Okay. All right. Look forward to y'all. Okay. We'll be back here tomorrow night. Same link. Okay. At 8 o'clock. I'm going to not to keep you any more than an hour. Okay. But we're going to tell you how we launch in our cities in Cincinnati and Cleveland and Baltimore and Washington and New York, okay, and Los Angeles. We're going to talk about those launches domestically and internationally tomorrow.
Hey, Herschel, next time you tell that piece on Super Bowl Sunday, connect Congo Square and how those early pioneers from California came from Louisiana. Leidesdorff, the Black folks that built California came from Louisiana.
And what I want you to do tomorrow,
yes, sir,
is tell that story.
I'll tell it.
All right.
I know. I know.
Yeah, I know you know. That's why I said. And Leidesdorff especially, tell that story because that when they talk about it in that Louisiana and that French and that Haitian connection. Okay. All right.
All right.
Bring it to the table tomorrow.
All right. I'll be there. All right.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Herschel.
All right. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right.
Thank you for everything.
Thank
you so much.
Bye-bye.